My next guest is a Republican congressman from New York, Tom Reed. Congressman Reed, thanks for being with us on the show.
Thanks for having me on.
Well, Congressman, the president does have a pledge from Kim Jong-un to denuclearize. Granted, it's a very broad deal at this point. What's your reaction overall?
Well, you know, I'm supportive of what President Trump is doing in regards to trying to negotiate this through a peaceful outcome. But we're ultimately down to a choice between peace or military options. And that's why I think we as a nation, Democrats and Republicans, should come together to applaud what the president has done here, try to get this into further detail, and come to Congress. I do support the effort to come to Congress and have us ratify this as a treaty so that we send one clear message to North Korea. No nuclear weapons is in any way a reality we can live with.
Do you think that if it comes to Congress that there will be enough consensus to get a treaty made? I mean, that's one of the reasons why President Obama went for an executive order with the Iran deal, because he didn't think that there'd be enough votes to formalize it as a treaty. You think there'll be bipartisanship here?
I do believe there would, because the alternative is the unthinkable. And it's something that is the reality of the day, and that is military invasion of North Korea and taking out Kim Jong-un and his regime and making sure that the nuclear weapons that he is committed to possessing is not a reality that ever comes into existence. So when you look at those two choices, I think folks would come together and say a negotiated, peaceful path is the best outcome in here in regards to this. And that means Senate action, Congress action in regards to taking care of it and send the message. We support that resolution.
Well, Congressman, you did use some strong language on social media in describing the consequences for Kim, saying that it'll mean the military destruction of his country and his death should he throw away this opportunity. Do you think that we go to the military option as the next step? What would have to happen at this point for there to be a need for that?
Well, I think if Kim Jong-un chooses to disregard his commitment to denuclearize the nuclear peninsula, and he shows a willingness to engage in nuclear proliferation, and that he shows and turns his back on his word now that's been given to the president and to the world that he's committed to denuclearizing the peninsula, then that leaves no other choice, because we cannot have a nuclearized North Korea and the capability to hit our American homeland. That's what we're talking about. That's the capability that Kim Jong-un wants to do. And when you see the devastation and the horrific actions he's done against his own people, he will do nothing, in my opinion, in regards to reasonableness in regards to taking action against us as American citizens.
Well, speaking of Kim Jong-un's broader bad behavior, Congressman, granted that this is an opening statement or pledge, but it didn't address things like chemical and biological weapons and its program, and it didn't touch on North Korea's bad behavior with helping Syria and Iran with their weapons programs. How do you see those issues now coming into play?
Oh, absolutely. Further negotiations and conversations need to occur, and that's why this is the opening act in regards to these negotiations. And what I'm concerned about is that folks back home, Democrats and Republicans, are not uniting and send the message to Kim Jong-un that we're going to stand with President Trump in regards to negotiating a peaceful outcome to this. And that means all the issues that are related to North Korea. But most importantly, the commitment that Kim Jong-un has made not to get nuclear weapons needs to be honored and be held accountable to that regime.
China, Congressman, is thought to have been using its influence over Pyongyang as leverage in other negotiations. How does this now play into the bigger picture with trade talks with China?
Well, absolutely, and that's another message. Not only is our interest in negotiating this in a path to peace the right path to take, but from China's interests, I think they're aligned with us, I hope, to say we need to resolve this diplomatically and we need to resolve this on a peaceful manner, because a militarized intervention in North Korea is the only other alternative that is out there. And I think China gets that message, and that's why we have the opportunity we have with President Trump meeting with Kim Jong-un. Now, when you talk about the trade relationships, absolutely, that is a tool in the toolbox, in my opinion, that can strengthen our position with China, with leverage, with economic powers to try to force them to stand with us, to show in their interest that it's in their interest to stand with us in taking on North Korea in regards to this situation.
And Congressman, you, of course, are on the trade subcommittee. Trade and tariffs, very topical right now. How do you think the president handled the discussions on tariffs at the G7?
Well, you know, he has definitely made this commitment on his campaign. It's no secret that he was bringing disruptive policies to Washington, D.C. and to our trading partners. And what he's doing is following through on that commitment. And I think it should be no surprise to the world leaders that the president is saying, look, we want fair, reciprocal trade. What that means is, China, you can't steal our intellectual property. What that means is you can't force us to have investments in China without American ownership interests and then take over those businesses once they're there and rooted on China soil. Those unfair practices have to come to an end. And what we're looking at, when you look at the G7, same thing applies. When we want to access the Canadian market and they want to access the United States market, it needs to be done on equal level footing. And when you have tariff differentials of 270%, like we do on dairy, for example, with Canada, that to me is a problem that needs to be resolved.
And yeah, that certainly is a point that the president has been making, to level the playing field. And you mentioned those tariffs that Canada puts on U.S. dairy. How do you see this issue being addressed in the NAFTA renegotiation efforts?
I think that, you know, I come from a large family. I got 11 older brothers and sisters, and this is really a family discussion, a family difference when it comes to Canada and NAFTA. We have strong relationships, strong friendships with Mexico and Canada. Those friendships are going to continue, but obviously we have a difference in opinion and position in regards to these tariffs, and I think we can work this out. The message I would like to send to Canada and Mexico is stay at the table, negotiate this in good faith, and we can work this out by working together at the table.
Congressman, I want to shift focus to another matter now with the passing away of Kate Spade and Anthony Bourdain. A lot of attention is now being brought to the alarming rise of suicide in the U.S. You tweeted about that last week, that you're on the Mental Health Caucus and the House Suicide Prevention Task Force. How is the task force tackling this issue?
Yeah, we're raising awareness is mission number one, and I so appreciate the question and raising an opportunity to raise awareness on the issue of suicide. When folks are dealing with this serious situation, taking your own life is something that is just not the path to choose. Reach out to someone. Reach out to the 1-800 number. Reach out to a family member. Reach out to a clergy member. Reach out to a trusted teacher or a trusted counselor, and because there's a better way than taking your own life. And I'll tell you, you know, I've seen so many young lives, 18-year-olds, 16-year-olds, hearing horror story after horror story. And it's not just about those individuals and the lost opportunity they represent with their death, but how it impacts families, how it impacts communities, how it devastates friendships and long-term devastation and scars to people's mental health and well-being because of this act by an individual. And so at the end of the day, appreciate the opportunity to raise awareness, and awareness is the number one issue that I think we can do in regards to the efforts we're taking as a caucus.
All right, Congressman, appreciate it. Congressman Tom Reed, thanks for joining us on I-24.
Thank you so much for having us on.